Hello fishing friends, this is Matthew with Outfishing 13 bringing you another reel service and repair video. Today I'm going to be working on this Zebco 808. This is a brand new model and I'm going to show you how to service this reel, and also we're going to super tune it by adding 2 ball bearings to the handle shaft, making it a much better and sturdier reel. Let's get started. We're just going to need a few tools to work on this Zebco 808. We're going to need a large screwdriver, maybe a small screwdriver. We're going to need some reel grease. This year I'm using pin reel grease. You're going to need some reel oil. I'm using this new Lucas fishing reel oil. It's new to me anyways. And if your reel you've used it for a couple seasons already and it's getting dirty, you're going to need some things to clean it up with. And then you can use plain old soapy water, dry it out. You can use WD-40 for cutting out the old grease and things like that. I would not recommend using any harsh solvents like brake clean or anything like that that's going to melt or damage the plastic. Now this is a really nice reel. It's your basic 808 model. So it has the bite alert. It has an anti-reverse. It has a metal foot. It has a nice big power crank on it. It's ambidextrous, so you can move the handle from this side to this side. It has a nice big push button for casting that's got a nice texture on there. This comes pre-spooled with 145 yards of 20-pound test. It has a 2.61 gear ratio for lots of power on that crank for catching some big fish. So it's a really nice reel. Like I said, it's the newest model, and the years before this were very, very similar on how to repair and service them. Alright, let's jump right in. The first thing that you need to do on any of these reels is take the front off. I'm going to remove this little line keeper here and take the front nose cone off. Okay, the next thing you need to do is you need to take this spinner cone assembly off, or the spinner head assembly. Hold the handle and turn it to the left. Okay, one of the differences, let me point this out, between an 808 and an 888, or some of the 808 more fancier models, is this only has 1 pickup pin, but the spinner head is actually made for 2 pins. So if you wanted to upgrade it by getting an 888 spinner cone, you could, as long as you were getting the same sort of model. We need to take this E-clip off right here. This is where a small screwdriver comes in handy, and you just come in here and twist this off and get this clip off. Now, I always forget to do this, but you want to make sure that your drag is all the way loose. Okay. And then let's take the drag assembly apart. So you got a stainless steel keyed drag washer and then a fiber drag washer. Now one of the things I'm seeing on this, so I'm glad I'm servicing this, is this hardly has any grease on it at all. That should be a lot more grease than that. Okay, and then we can take this off. And there's not a lot of grease on this shaft either. So back here we got an assortment of different types of drag washers, and these are all pretty indicative and similar. So we got another fiber drag washer, and that had plenty of grease on it. And then you have this cupped drag washer. The cup always goes down, okay? And there's a reason for that being cupped, and that's because this next washer is a spring washer, okay? Alright? So don't get those mixed up. And then we have the drag wheel here. Okay, a little bit of grease on there. Not as much as I would like to see. This was okay, but the rest not so much. So when we put this back together, it's going to go back together with lots of grease. Then, just because, well, let's take this out. Now, I don't think that drag wheel will come out. No. And then we don't really need to take this apart right here. But this will fall out, so let's take that out. Okay, now we got everything on the front all apart. The next thing we want to do is we want to take this handle apart. So using a large screwdriver, let's take this handle screw off. Okay, and then you have this big spacer there. If you switch the handle from one side to the next, that spacer has to go with it, okay? Because this handle has a built-in spacer, okay? Now we're ready to go ahead and pull off the back cover. Okay, there we go. The handle, this handle you pull up and it has little flat spots there, and then you can take it out, okay? Alright, and here's what we're looking at the back here to service this reel. The next thing we want to do is we want to take out this main handle shaft, okay? To do that, we've got a clip right here. This is a bushing or bearing retaining clip. Then we have a bushing here and a bushing here. So just using a pair of needle nose pliers, take this clip off right here. Okay, pretty simple. You'll notice that it's a little bit different. It's not equal on either side. And when I took that out, that long part was going down. So next thing we want to do is we want to take out these bushings. So there's one plastic bushing, and here's the other plastic bushing. Okay, this also has a little spacer washer on there. So here's my two black plastic bushings. Now, on their own, these are engineered and designed to be very strong and durable for many years of good use, as long as they're kept clean. If this gets dirt and grit in here, they're going to wear out pretty fast. So what I'm going to do with my service is I'm going to super tune it by replacing these two bushings right here with two stainless steel ball bearings. And I'll put the size and the model down below. But what they are is they're the same size of bearing that goes in like an 888 or some of the higher end 808 models. But basically it's a 9 by 17 by 5 millimeter bearing. And if you're to look it up, let's see, the model number on Tackle Service is a WZ030-01. Okay, and you can usually find that under like an 888 model reel. Okay, so let's set those aside. Right, now that I have those bushings out, I'm ready to take out the main center shaft here and the pinion shaft. So one of the things that you want to be aware of when you take these apart is how the anti-reverse goes back together. You'll notice right here is this little black plastic piece. See this? That's the anti-reverse actuator. It has a little finger right here, and this is the anti-reverse pawl, okay, or the anti-reverse lever. And it fits right into this little V-shaped here, and then down below is the anti-reverse lock, okay, and it's moved by this switch right here and locks it into place, okay. So let's take that out, and we can take this out now. Now one of the things I noticed on here is this does not have a bearing down in here. It has another black plastic bushing, and so I've ordered some bearings that I'm going to replace that with a regular bearing. So let's get that out. let's reach down in there and just push it out. The size on this is an 8 by 16 by 5. The part number, if you want to buy the bearing for it, is a UZ017-01. And it fits on an 808 or an 888 pinion shaft. The generic number for it, for the ball bearing, is a S688ZZ. That's for the stainless ones. Okay, and I'll put those in the description below when we get finished. Okay, now that we have this all apart, if you need to clean it up, you can clean it out with a number of different things. If it's really got a lot of grease in there that's old, I like to use WD-40 because WD-40 doesn't hurt the plastic frame. Or you can use soap and water. Now, if you decide to take this out, remember, just be really careful about this, this little clicker spring there, because they have the little tiny parts have a tendency to get lost. If you want to take this apart, you can. There's this little keeper here. There's a little E-clip right there that will release this. And then you just kind of squeeze this little clicker together and you can take that apart. But since I don't really need to take that apart, I'm not going to take and disassemble the whole thing. Alright, so let's get it put back together. Now, if you don't have bearings, just take and make sure that you grease up the shafts that these 3 bushing goes, that they come in contact with. Make sure they're nice and clean and put them back together in the right order. For example, the hollow space goes this way and the hollow space on this one goes this way, okay, towards the gear, okay. So to put mine back together, to use these bearings, I need one of these bearings right here. This is for the pinion shaft, and it's a sealed bearing. And so to oil it, I'm going to put some oil on it here and let it just soak in. Okay. Okay, we're going to begin by putting in this bearing down here. Reach on there and push it in. Then let's put this back in here. Now again, let me show you a close-up of the anti-reverse actuator. This anti-reverse actuator has this little notch in it right here. See that little notch right there? The actuator has to go right into there to work properly. And so here's the plastic actuator right there. Okay, see how that's put together. Now it's got these other little tabs on there. They're really there to help hold it on. Okay, but this is the one that we're concerned about. This one right here. So we're going to go ahead and make sure it gets put right in there like so. And now we're ready to put the bearings on. So let's take the first bearing. We're going to go ahead and put that on there. Use one of these plastic bushings, and then the bearing, the handle screw, and seat it on there. Okay, just like that, and then take out that plastic bushing. Okay, now there's another thing that you need to be aware of when you add bearings. The bearing is just a little bit wider than the plastic bushing, just by a fraction. And so you don't need this little spacer washer, because the bearing will take up the rest of the gear lash. If you try to put that in there with the bearing, you're not going to have any gear lash, and it's not going to be able to you're not going to be able to get your clip put on. So take this and put this on. Use your bushing and seat this in there. Okay. Now these are made to have bearings in them because there's different versions of the 808 and the 888. Like the 808 saltwater has bearings in it. It probably has two. It might have one down there and one here. Okay, now that we put that on, we can go ahead and put this clip in. And this clip has two, it's not the same on each side, so you have to make sure that this part of the clip goes down like this, okay? And then it will snap into place just like that. Okay. Now let's take a second before we put the rest of this back together and check our anti-reverse. Okay, and it's working just fine. Turn it off, and the clicker works. Sometimes you have to hold this down so it doesn't get in the way. Now we're ready to go ahead and grease it up. It just takes a thin layer on those teeth. Okay, that's it for that. Just work that on there. Okay, we're ready to put this in the back and put the handle on. The button goes in like this, and then it goes down like that, okay? Kind of got these flats, and it goes in like that, and it goes down like that. We put the back on. And then put your handle on. Now we're ready to finish putting the drag system together. The first thing we need to do is we need to put in this big drag wheel. When you put this in, well, we need to put this in first here. We're going to put a little bit of grease on this. Put that in there. And there's a little slot, you have to turn it and seat it all the way in there like so. Okay, I like to put a little bit of grease on here. The drag wheel can spin around on it. It doesn't take very much, just a little bit. And then this drag wheel, you want to put it in just like that. There's a stop right there, but the amazing thing about this drag wheel is how big it is. It goes all the way around, allows you to really fine tune that. And then you have this washer right here. There's a spring washer. And then there's this cupped drag washer. The cup has to go down. Okay, and it locks in place as well. And then we can put a thin layer of grease on here. Doesn't require very much. And then this fiber drag washer and some grease. Want to grease up the shaft there before we put on our spool. Then we want to put some more grease on here. Their drag washer. Some more grease. The last slotted drag washer, stainless steel, put that on. And then we can go ahead. Now this one has a particular way that this goes in, because that little E-clip actually locks in place in a little hole here. There's really only one way to do it, and that's this way right here, because there's a little hole right there that goes into. So get this in place. I'll get it on there. There. Now that little part is right into that hole. And it's locked into place. Okay, that's all looking good. Now we're ready to put this in. To service these, you just need a little bit of oil and grease. I like to put a little bit of oil on this pin right here. Just a drop. That's good enough. And then a little bit of grease where this slides. So a little bit right there, and work that in. A little bit around there. Now, this has a little wheel on it that actually spins around. And that's the cam. And you want to put a little bit of grease right around here where that surface of that cam goes around. And spin it on. Make sure that the pin comes out, and when you caulk it, that pin should go in. Now, I've had some people ask me questions about, having problems and that they can't cast it. And on the older ones, that pin lever has a spring on the outside. This has a spring on the inside, so it doesn't get caught in string if string ever gets underneath your spinner cone. But when you push that in, that should suck it in just like that. When you caulk it, it should come out. Now you'll notice that this spinner cone has two places for a pin. That's because on the higher end models like the 808 or the 808 saltwater or the Magnum, it will have two pickup pins. And you could potentially buy an 808 or an 888 spinner cone that would fit on this, that would have two pickup pins if you wanted to. But it's really not that necessary, although it does have, that has half the wear and tear on your spinner cone. Okay, so with that done, we can put the cap on. I'm just going to wrap this around here and trap my line right here like that so I can test it out. Sometimes it helps if you caulk it to get that pin out of the way. Make sure that goes on there nice and straight and don't cross thread it. Tighten it up. Let's test it out. Oh yeah, that's going to be a better reel. So there you go. This is a modern 808 that's been super tuned with 3 ball bearings, replacing the 3 plastic bushings, and it's a great reel. These 808s super tuned like that would be good for a bow fishing reel. If you can't find a bow fishing Zebco 808, but this will make it good for big cats. You can put up to 25 pound test on here. It'll take 145 yards of 20 pound test. Great big crank handle, good for saltwater or freshwater. It's a great reel. It's super tough. You'll really enjoy it. But let me know if you have any comments, put them below. Give me a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel by pushing on the button right over there. Thanks, and have a great day next time you go fishing. Bye.